Our first interview, privileged to have with us in studio, Senator for Mandera County, Billow Kerrow. Senator, thank you very much for joining us in Karibu.
Thank you.
Just your reaction to that piece that has been done by K24's Hassan Mugambi. There's just been that general feel. I mean, just looking at the varied reactions that have come as a result of, this ongoing exercise. There's a sense that people from, the Somali community, ethnic Somalis are feeling quite aggrieved and discriminated against and being treated like third-rate citizens. I don't know if that's the view that you share.
Yes, I think that is the view many of us who have been victims of this police swoop share. The reason why we do so is this exercise has not been done for the first time. It's been done almost every other year. The last one was in December 2012, January, February 2013. It was just as bad. Then 2010. And it's the trouble with it is that it is indiscriminate and it targets anyone. So that me, even as a member of parliament, my house has been targeted, been searched just a couple of weeks ago. It's highly unlikely that you or any of these other Kenyans would be stopped in the middle of the streets in Nairobi, in Eastleigh, or elsewhere, and asked to produce your ID cards. But in the case of a Somali, that has been the trend, not now, but for the last 40, 50 years. So you kind of feel that every 2 or 3 years when you think you really, are trying to be part of the, the country, you feel again you're being reminded that you actually don't belong. So this is a matter that has been documented many times by the National Commission on Human Rights, Kenyan Rights, the Forgotten People, Foreigners at Home. So many publications have been done really on this matter, and it's a major issue regarding the identity.
So there's never a sense of full integration? Yes,
because you keep being reminded about your identity. That, if today, for example, I'll give you an example. Let me not talk about others. My daughter, when she finished secondary school a couple of years ago, 2 years ago, and they came to issue ID cards to fill in the forms, 7 of them who are from the Somali community, they declined to fill the forms for them, including my daughter. So when I called the director's office, the forms for my daughter were completed. But when the cards eventually came, the card for my daughter was not included. A few weeks later when they came. To date, when my son was applying for an ID card, it took him 3 years. We walk into Nyayo House all the time for interviews. So it's like you apply for your identity card, even if you apply from Garissa. Forget about those applying for these things in other parts of the country. You apply from Garissa, Mandera, Wajir. After being subjected to vetting by the security officers and the administration and chiefs and elders there, you are subjected to a further vetting at Nyayo House. So it's like it's really become a major problem if you get arrested today, you are told we'll subject your ID card for vetting. So you'll be locked up in Kasarani or somewhere for another 1 week.
Is this kind of disillusionment that is causing, maybe you can say this lack of enthusiasm, for instance, in taking part in, say, maybe like in this war against terror, from the community? You can just sense that there's a general lack of enthusiasm about this.
I think even with all this discrimination, if you will, I think the Kenyan Somalis have generally performed fairly well in the public service. Those, whether they're senior levels in public service or in the forces. I can tell you for a fact that the forces that have been involved in the capture of Kismayo and all that, there's a large number of Somali troops that are there, and they've been working very actively. In addition, I do remember that the government actually, there are up to 1,000 people from young men who have actually been trained, you remember, in Manyani and in Siolo and so forth, to be part of the TFG at the time to assist the government, the KDF forces. So in spite of all that, I think in terms of trying to be part of the country, because we actually are part of this country. I mean, Somalis come from Northeastern Province is part of this nation. And I think but it really, causes quite a bit of disillusionment, particularly to the young people who, in spite of the fact that they born in Nairobi, you go to school in Nairobi with all your friends, but when it comes to everything else, you're kind of being reminded that, you know, you're a Somali.
So how can we be able to sort of like, how can the government, you know, win the hearts and the minds of ethnic Somalis in this country? Because there's a sense of mistrust, you know, suspicion, you know, between government and, you know, the ethnic Somalis themselves. What can be done? Because there's a history that dates back even before independence.
I think we, in my view, one of the things that the government needs to do is to desist as much as possible from this collective punishment, if you will, of the community, so that every time there's something done in Mandera, in Garissa, Nairobi, everywhere, you target the whole community in order to look for one or two criminals, you know, that are in their midst, and treat them the same way you treat all the others. I think that is the best way, really. And the second thing is that you also have to appreciate that we have a border, and that the border is being manned by government. To the extent that government functionaries, you know, fail in their responsibility in terms of dealing with the control of immigration at the border, you really don't have to, you know, blame the whole society. And I think unless that is changed, because it came to a height in 1989 when the government decided that we have to screen all Somalis and give Kenyan Somalis an additional document. It used to be called the pink card, or we were having 2 ID cards, which was unconstitutional, and it was terminated in 2002, 2003. So there's nothing that has not been done. But I think what we need to do is to win the hearts and minds, and to make it easier for this community to also work with government at all times, and to support them in these efforts. I think it's important to appreciate that collective, you know, targeting, really, of everyone, that, you know, it is your people who are doing this. I think that tag is really got to be stopped, really.
Yeah, because I know that the government has stated, you know, repeatedly that maybe such exercises like the ongoing security SWOOP is not really targeted at, you know, individuals from the Somali community. This is targeted at weeding out criminals, so that those who argue that even in the process, you know, some civil liberties can be, you know, can be infringed.
I think we have said time and again, we support the government's action to look for criminals in the society at all times and any time. But what we're saying is, let it be done in the same way that when it happens to other communities, it is done. What happens is that the government then focuses on suspects, not on everybody. For example, if you're a businessman today in Isli, or if you're a resident in Isli, you can be subjected to that, you know, continuous harassment by police on daily. Today, a group will come to you, show us your ID card. Next day, another group will come. The next day, another. I mean, there's no end. It goes on for months and months. And what we're saying is that there's a need that the government really needs to focus on those suspects. You don't go, when the Mungiki were a major problem in Central Province, Muranga and those places, the government had a sense in really targeting on and going for the criminals in Madari and everywhere. But they did not subject the entire community living in one particular area, you know, in the sense. So I think that seems to be. So now what is happening is, if you are in Eldoret, if you are in Kisumu, Mombasa, any Somali scene has to be stopped. You know, that I think is what, and the people you are doing this to, unfortunately for us, our main concern is that the operation is intended to look for terrorists. So when you now focus on immigrants, then you are not looking for the terrorists. And I think the unfortunate incident which happened in Pangani doesn't vindicates this, that in spite of all, if you focus really on immigrants, then you actually are not looking for terrorists, because you don't look for terrorists by simply arresting 5,000-10,000 people and hoping that they'll be included in that list. I think what we have said is we gave a number of suggestions to the government, honestly, specifically on how to deal with the problems of Isli. And I think if they went through that, it would really address their concerns. At the same time, give the community also an opportunity to feel that they are not being targeted.
So has that been implemented?
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. For instance, what we suggested, if you don't mind, I can mention quickly one or two of them. We said one of the things you can do is, terrorism can only be won through intelligence, really human intelligence. And you can look at it, what happened in all other countries. Why can't the government get about 100, 200, 300, whatever, as many numbers they want, of people from the community, into intelligence and put them into SLE or all those other areas that they suspect these things are happening. They'll get information firsthand. Second, get police reservists from businessmen who are trusted, who can be vetted, and who are known. About 100 or so businessmen. Initially, they will make sure that everything that enters that estate, anyone who enters that estate, can be monitored, and they'll report to the government. I mean, it's in their interest. They're doing business. You know, we've said, look at the police station there at Pangani, border station in Isli. Give it to people of integrity who are not just going for money, who will really deal with with the cases. I think we gave a number of things which we think will really address the problems in our view.
Well, certainly, I do appreciate, Senator, that. I hope that also does form, part of this national conversation. We appreciate for your time and also your perspective, Senator.